Okay, well, let's do a bit of review of what we talked about on our first call. What did you get out of it?
Funnily enough, my meditation was a lot better. I also, one thing I forgot to tell you last time was, you know, that breathing you did, like about two and a half minutes. It's like
keep panting.
You breathe in and then you sigh out. That's amazing for my meditation. I try and do it before, and you know, I haven't done it so far this morning, but I try and do it about 3 times a day. I notice the whole brain area just is lighting up, and I feel a lot calmer, you know, mood's better. And basically the meditation is like light years to me. It's a massive difference.
Yeah. Thank you for seeing that directly. Okay. It's hard for me to talk about it, and then the students don't quite get it. But the word anapana is exactly the same word as pranayama that is used in the sense of pranayama yoga. And ana is the in-breath and pana is the out-breath, but in pranayama, it's the out-breath is prana and ana is the in-breath. So pranayama and anapanasati are the same word.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that the whole point of breathing and breathing techniques have been part of the Indian subcontinent practices for millennia now. And that the Buddha picked up on anapanasati in ways that hasn't been picked up on yet with Western medicine. What they went for instead was something that could be sold, to where good breathing is free. No one can make any money off of it. But what they can make money off of is exercise equipment. And the value of exercise equipment is people start breathing better. And so in a way, it's a bait and switch. It's a scam. And that scam has been going on for quite a long time. I'll give you several examples of it. In the 1970s, there was a major amount of research that was done over a large group of people, probably in the thousands, and that there was 5 groups of people. One was a control group, another one that was doing psychotherapy with psychiatrists only. There were those who were seeing psychiatrists but were taking medication. Then there was the whole thing of group therapy and group psychology in those days. And then the fourth was exercise. And the target audience was depression. What is the best cure for depression? Medication, individual therapy, or doing nothing at all with the control group, or exercise. Guess which one won?
Exercise.
Exercise, exactly so. And the pill pushers did not want that information out. The psychologists did not want that information out. The doctors did not want that information out, and so the information from that was squelched. But that the manufacturers of sporting equipment utilized that because it was talking about exercise. But a better way of looking at it is that it has to do with breathing. And that exercise is one of the things that we do with breathing, but there's a lot of it. Here's an example of it is the guy is sitting at work in the afternoon and he gets drowsy and he can't focus on his work. And so he gets up and he goes to the water fountain and gets a drink of water. When he comes back to his desk, now he can focus for about 5 or 10 minutes. Why? Because he energized his breathing. He got up, he moved around, he circulated things, but after he sat back down, he went back to the normal, not getting enough air kind of breathing, and so his mind gets dull again. We also know that one of the characteristics of old age is that people get tired, almost as if they get tired of living. But what we're looking at generally is during the night, when people are getting old in years, then the breathing gets very shallow, so that the body is not really rejuvenating itself during the night. So when they wake up tired because they're not getting enough air. Now, there is quite a lot of reference to this in various religious literature. So this is something that has been known throughout the ages for a long time, and yet people don't practice it enough. And part of the reason for that is because one deep breath is not enough. We have to remember to keep doing it and keep doing it. And that's the quality then that we begin to understand, that doing a lot of exercise only means that you're breathing a lot. But then there is another study that did make big time. And this was in the heyday of tobacco in the United States, when the government was finding out all of the stuff that was wrong with it. The tobacco companies were fighting back big time to not lose their market share. And so one of the studies, actually it wasn't one study, this was their favorite way of studying. And it's like this, that people who smoke less than 5 cigarettes a day are actually generally more healthy than your average person on the street who's a non-smoker. But after it goes over that limit of 5 and now 10 and now 20 cigarettes a day, it's absolute poison. So what's the difference? Is it the overload of the tobacco and the products in it? Or is it the fact that when people are only smoking a little bit, they will take a deep breath and inhale? And that's why it has the advantage that it does.
That's interesting.
Never thought of that. Never. What?
Pardon?
I never really thought of that when they.
I mean, we've heard the stories of the tobacco companies pushing the agenda of its health benefits, but in terms of you're actually deeper breathing for a period.
Yes. And so this is actually an integral and deep part of Anapanasati. In fact, the whole practice is named after this. It's also step 1 of Anapanasati is that deep, long in-breath and deep out-breath. That's the first part of the instructions on practicing, is to understand when we're breathing in that it's a long in-breath, and to understand when we're breathing out that it's a long out-breath. This is the foundation of practice. During that time of a long in-breath and the out-breath, there will actually be more time to do more things. But in all cases, we want to at least come back to that point so that you know when you're breathing in that this is an in-breath. And it has all the benefits of taking an in-breath. And when we're taking an out-breath, then we take on or enjoy all the benefits of breathing out. And so that cycle is like taking in something really fresh and really new and something really marvelous. And then the out-breath is like reach out, to exhaust, to exhale, to get rid of it all. And keeping that process going is enormously beneficial. And yet it it's to be practiced. And for some reason or another, and in fact, I know the reason or another, it comes from perhaps a book you might have heard of. It's called the Visuddhimagga by Acharya Buddhaghosa, somewhere in the 5th century. So you've actually heard about that.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
I've it's quite popular in Sri Lanka, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It sits on my father's desk. I've never touched it, by the way, so don't worry. I haven't read it. I've heard what it was doing, to the teachings.
Well, I've had the marvelous experience of deep study of it, followed by having the book taken away from me, quite literally by a monk.
Okay.
That, in fact, the Visuddhimagga has a lot of magic in it that was never intended to be there. That Buddhaghosa himself was more of a Brahmin.
He was more of a scholar. It's like trying to teach someone driving from a book. That's what the analogy.
But has never driven.
But has never driven. That's
right.
The analogy I picked up.
Okay. Well, that's exactly how most people practice meditation, is by reading a book.
Yeah.
And that goes way back. Well, it's actually in the Visuddhimagga that the idea of not trying to control the breath, but just being mindful of it.
Mm.
And that has actually been practiced for centuries in certain areas, mostly in Burma and in Sri Lanka.
Mm.
But that other places in the Buddhist world have not, let us say, taken that detour. That Anapanasati actually talks about the long, deep breath.
Okay.
And that there is only one way to have a long, deep breath, and that is when we're actually controlling it.
I've never heard that.
Because the other one, the one, like you say, the Anapana, it's natural breath. That's what it's being described as, not forceful or you're conscious of it in terms of you're actually, the control was the word.
All right. So let's look at the difference, because when people hear the word natural, they automatically transform it into normal. We're not looking anymore for a normal breath, the normal breath that most people take, because it's not adequate. We need a really natural breath instead.
Yeah. But we've forgotten how to breathe naturally.
Exactly. We need to learn how to breathe naturally, because we breathe normally, and that's actually in a shutdown mode that has to do with fear. Fear, we go into a state of fright or flight preparation, but the initial thing that we do is freeze. For instance, in the old days, hundreds of thousands of years ago, where things actually were dangerous, that whenever danger was seen, the human would stop. Why? Because generally the predator's eyesight is not as keen. So the human's best defense is seeing his predator before the predator sees him. That actually works very well for teenagers driving in automobiles that we practice, and that is, you're out there on the street, you better know the cop before he knows you. You keep your eyes open. You're watching for the cops, because they've got a whole lot more cars to look at but you've only got one to find. So you keep your eye on that cop car. But they don't do that nowadays, and so they get stopped. In the old days, you don't get stopped if you know it's a cop car. You can take care of it before he sees you. Well, that's quite normal. That's the survival instinct, in fact. Mm-hmm. But what we do when we see that danger is that we normally freeze. Well, now let's fast forward back to normal society nowadays, and you're living in England.
Yeah.
Where in England are you? Are you in London?
Maidstone in Kent. It's the greeny bit of England. The
you know the bit that juts out just after London on the
Okay,
bottom right-hand corner.
All right.
Right.
That sounds like a relatively up to a very safe place for people to live.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as...
Then why is everybody who lived there afraid?
Don't ask me. I'm quite happy. I'm okay staying indoors, taking my precautions, like you said in the last video. So I'm generally, I've probably seen it before,
Okay, so now we're looking at that part of the breathing problem that people have is because of their emotional states. And so we go into shutdown mode, especially when we're afraid of things, when in fact there's nothing to be afraid of. And so what we do with that, and this is a big point that the Buddha made in several suttas, and then there's a long sutta about it, only one topic, and that is fearlessness. That we become fearless, which means we can continue to breathe. We don't have to shut down. We don't have to close off. We don't have to be afraid. We're fearless. And that's an attitude that's to be developed, the attitude of a winner. And you know that attitude, right noble attitude, is one of the eightfold noble path factors.
Yep.
Isn't that interesting? So when we start to apply the eightfold noble path factors to Anapanasati, we have this winning combination that takes us through with the development of these skills. That each one of these are skills to be developed. And as we develop the skills, we gain confidence that we can do this. And so that attitude begins to change. The attitude of being a victim that is afraid of things into the attitude of being a lion, that we're the boss here. And that the most important quality of that has to do with, well, who's in charge of my life? The way that I talk about it is in the sense of everyone is an emperor of his own pile of dirt.
Yes.
Yeah,
the question is, are you going to be buried under your pile of dirt? Are you going to be scrambling trying to get out of it? Or are you going to be sitting on top of your world, sitting on top of your pile of dirt? But most people, in fact, I was just talking to a guy today about this, that he's actually wanting something out of his meditation. And we began to talk about emptiness, that in fact, this pile of dirt that we're sitting on top of, now that we really see it and we've climbed on top of it, it really is nothing much to it. That it was a big deal when I was buried under it, but now that I'm on top of the world, there's not much there. And so there's not much to expect from it. That in fact, getting our mind in a state to where we are the champion is actually most of the goal, if we can think of it in goal. But another way of thinking is that someone who is really, really strong and powerful doesn't have to go around proving it all the time. He knows. It's the guy who's not quite sure of himself that goes around trying to prove himself. In fact, that's a typical plot in a Western movie. That the old gunslinger has killed so many, he's so fast, and so he hangs up his gun out of disgust, only to be chased by one young gunslinger after another that's trying to get a name for themselves by taking on the old dude. And they all get shot. And so this is basically what we're looking at is that when we do have that confidence, when we do have that assurance on the inside that we can in fact manage our mind, we wind up now being the emperor. And that emperorship then becomes part of the way that we relate to the world in a new way, that we're no longer a victim of the world. We're no longer a victim of our own pile of dirt, that we're now actually the champion of it. This is what we mean by right noble attitude. because most people are in a victim state. Basically, we could say that the basic state that people are in is in a state of doubt. And that doubt is the first question that is asked is, who made this mess? Which is really another question would be, who's going to help me clean up my mess? And so this is the source of so many snake oil salesmen, so many charlatans, so many doctors, so many gurus that set themselves up so that they can be in a position to profit from people who have not figured out that the job of fixing up their mind is theirs and theirs alone. No one can fix your mind but you can. And this is the first level of doubt that people go through. And that is, who can I get to help me out of the mess I've made? And when we finally come to the conclusion, no, nobody's going to help. I got to do it myself or it's not going to happen. That is almost a tragedy for people. That can be a low spot when you figure it out. Ain't nobody, not even meditation is going to help. Not this guru or that Buddha or nobody's going to help. That's hard to take.
Mm-hmm.
Until we come to the second noble truth to realize, in fact, that is the realization of the second noble truth, that I made this mess. That the second noble truth of moha, lobha, and dosa means that each individual one of us, it's that greed, the one that's in this mind, that ill will, the part that's in this mind. We can't blame society. We can't blame Obama. We can't blame Trump. We can't blame the prime ministers of this or that country. That this is, in fact, a personal issue. And so once we understand that, now comes even a bigger doubt. And that bigger doubt is, now that I recognize there's nobody's going to fix this but me, now the question arises, yeah, but am I up to the task? Can I do it?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, then the third doubt to be eradicated is, if I am up to the task and can do it, do I have the tools that I need to do the task? And once we eradicate the doubt about the tools that we have and our own ability to do it, now we've got that winning combination, that can-do attitude and the right tools, that we're good to go. We're all. This is what it takes. Okay, so that now let's look at that second kind of doubt, because this is the part that takes a long time to work through to get the mind. Basically, we're working through sati and right effort and coming over and over again to that point that the Buddha said when he was under the bo tree. He had to fight with Mara. And the way that we talk about doing it is, aha, I see you, Mara. Aha, I see you. In the sense of what the mind is doing. We're actually beginning to look at what the mind is doing. When we recognize that we can see what the mind is doing and we can change what the mind is doing, and we practice that over and over again, that starts to build confidence. That I, in fact, had one time that I got out of my misery. I can get myself out of my misery over and over again. All I have to do is these few points of the Eightfold Noble Path. And that is, I have to remember to come out of my stuff. I have to take the effort to come out of my stuff. Once I'm out of my stuff, I can congratulate myself for having come out of the stuff. And we practice that over and over and over again. And so in that regard, Anapanasati and the Eightfold Noble Path are intricately related, and that some of the skills in one are actually part of the skills of another. And that the key ingredient there is sati. Anapanasati and satipatthana and sati on the Eightfold Noble Path And sati is also a factor of the sambojana. It's the first factor of enlightenment. It's all over the teachings of the Buddha. And that is that this practice is, in fact, a practice we have to do it over and over and over and over again. Because the natural tendency of the mind is to go back into the old habits. And so we have to practice this. This is actually not magic. This is actually very practical. And so by practicing this way, we develop these skills. And the skill then would be sati. That's the skill to be developed. Being able to gladden the mind in the sense of, aha, I see you, Mara. That's a skill to be developed in the sense that we're able to see Mara in various ways. That in the beginning, the first kind of Mara we see is that the mind has just wandered away from the breath, and the intention was to watch the breath. Well, where did it go? Well, it went into Mara. So we begin to understand it like that. But later we begin to see Mara as anxiety, tension, fear, those kind of things, the feelings. But we also see Mara in the sense of wholesome and unwholesome thoughts. That we begin to intend to have wholesome thoughts, and we intend to no longer have unwholesome thoughts. Now, possibly the way that we can think of unwholesome thoughts are junk thoughts, because they're likely to go anywhere. And if we wander into the past, there's surely something back there that I screwed up on that I'll remember, and now I feel all bad again, all over again. Okay? And that's especially true. This is actually an important part of the noble path, is that we have to learn to stay out of the past, because as we progress along the path, our standards get very high. We expect things from ourselves now that we didn't before. Our morality base goes way up because we don't want anything. We're not out there hurting people to get what we want. But we didn't have that kind of standard in the past, which means if we start reminiscing in the past, we're going to run across every piece of junk that I ever did. And it's going to hurt. Hello, Tam just came home. So that's what happens is that we need to learn to stay out of the past, and not only that, but by staying out of it and staying more in the present moment. That means that now the memory base that we're building up, that we access, is more of a current one, to where most people, they stop growing kind of at late childhood, so they wind up staying children their whole lives because they're not being in this present moment. They're not being here now. And so as we spend more time as a Dhamma dude practicing Dhamma, that means that we're staying more and more in the here now, which then becomes more of a basis of how we think. In other words, if I grumble around my whole life, then everything that happens, I will grumble over it. But if I start developing the habit of smiling and joking, then when I run across something, the smiling and joking is now the new habit rather than the grumbling. So staying out of the past then is a major part of the practice. And in fact, we can think of that past and future kind of sums up the entire group of hindrances. So, you probably heard the hindrances in the Pali. It's panch nivara, the 5 things that slow us down or prevent us from being happy. And these things happen in the moment, in the mind. And when we're free of those hindrances, that means now we have freedom. Freedom to feel the way we want to feel, freedom to feel the way that we're training, feeling the way that we are aspiring to, rather than being dragged back down into the hindrances of the mind, and most of them have to do with the past. Another one would be restlessness. Restlessness gives anxiety. There is a feeling of fear, and fear gives rise to anger. And these kind of feelings and whatnot, we'll study more when we talk about paticca samuppada and the four modes of clinging, and the worlds that we create with this clinging. But in the beginning, we're going to just stay at that surface of saying that whenever the mind has wandered away from the breath, that's hindrance enough. And our job is to come back to the breath and stay with the breath. And then the mind will wander away again. Never mind, start again. Come back to the breath and start again, over and over again, with the confidence and the joy of, aha, I was able to catch it again. Aha, I see you, Mara. And so we start to develop that gladdening of the mind over and over again, that I see what's going on. I see what's going on. So we begin to look and investigate closer and closer. In that regard, we begin to experience the mind in deeper ways than we have before. Yeah, you've got a question.
I was going to ask, it's like, you know, when you get that hindrance or whatever that comes up and you say, aha, do you then delve into it? And so let's say, is it a likable feeling or whatever? And, you know, it's a nice thought or a bad thought, or do you actually just is it just the recognition of it? I spotted you.
In the beginning, it's recognition, because what that recognition is drawing out of it. You see, when we're in it, there's no recognition. An example of that would be sometimes you can be in a building and it's hard to see that it's on fire. But you can get outside the building and you can see, wow, this thing is on fire.
Because when you do that, does it, does it brighten the mind a bit? Because I'm sure, because you're putting in that energy to say, aha, I caught you, Mara. Because most of the other ones, they'll tell you to like either ignore it and come back. So it's a lower energy. So you put in a little bit more when you do that into the brain.
The way we were taught in TWIM was to don't label it, don't dwell on it, just let it pass.
Well, I've got.
It's there, and then just let it be and just let it dissolve. That's and just carry on with your metta. That's the approach.
All right. What you're saying then is that we're going to watch it fall off the table.
No, not in that sense.
Out of the mind. We're going to watch it fall off of the table of the mind. We're going to let it go. All right. There's another way of thinking it is that we're going to put something else on the table, even if that just shoves that old stuff off onto the floor.
Yeah.
Okay. What is it? The new thing that we're going to put in the mind is the thought, aha, I see you.
Okay.
Okay, that's the new thought, and that's the gladdening of the mind. So we can look at it from two different perspectives of the teaching of the Buddha. One is looking at it directly as Anapanasati has this step in it, step 10, of gladdening the mind. And we also have that story from Aha, I See You, Mara, that comes from the time when the Buddha was at Bodh Gaya, figuring out his mind. Basically, what we're going to do is sit in our own Bodh Gaya and figure out our own mind, just like the Buddha did, by saying, aha, I see you. That recognition or seeing now is what's occupying the mind rather than the hindrance itself.
Right.
Okay. So let's say then that the hindrance is I'm thinking about the argument that I had with Aunt Susie yesterday. And then I say, wait a minute, I see you, Susie. I see you, anger. I don't have to think about the anger and the argument that I had with her yesterday. I can sit here and enjoy my moment instead. So I take a deep breath and I say, oh, boy, I'm glad that Aunt Susie is gone. She's out of the mind now. And how does she get out of the mind? Was because we put something new in the mind. And that new thing that we put in the mind was the right effort, or this thing of aha, I see you. It's so now we've changed. We are no longer lost in thought. Now we have just sent up a flare. So we know what's going on now. And in the very, very beginning, that's why the breath is used as the anchor, so that the student can know the difference between, is he watching his breath or is he not watching his breath. That's easy enough to figure out. Later, we're going to use that same technique to figure out, am I watching my anxiety, or am I letting it grab me by the throat? Or am I watching my thoughts, or am I going to allow in unwholesome thoughts? So we start by watching the breath and taking good deep breaths, but as we quickly progress, we start taking other objects of things that are worthy of attention.
Right. Okay. Yep.
All right. And also, the way of going is in the sense of going in the direction of be here now. So the thoughts that we want to have are going to be more thoughts of what's happening right now, thoughts about the breath, thoughts about taking a deep breath, thoughts about how good it is to feel that air coming in, thoughts about how good it feels to let it all go, thoughts about how the chest is moving up and down, thoughts about what the body is doing. And so when we're thinking about things that are happening in the present moment, those things are wholesome. So long as we keep thinking thoughts that have to do with the present moment, we can stay in the present moment. But if we have a deep thought about, oh, this feels so good, and then Aunt Susie, and we had this argument, and now it's gone. Now I'm back into Aunt Susie's argument again, rather than, okay, never mind, start again, come back to the breath, and let's stay in this present moment. So a lot of it is training the mind to stay in the present moment by understanding that that's wholesome. Eventually, then, as we develop real skill, we begin to see the Four Noble Truths in the present moment. So when we investigate the Four Noble Truths, it's not like taking an exam at a university and getting all the answers right about all of the possible descriptions and the concepts. No, in fact, the Buddha talks about it in the sense of, this is suffering. This is it. I've got it. Aha, I see you. This is it. Okay. And also, this is the cause of suffering. Mara, I see you. This is it. And then we also, after we come out of that, now we can understand, oh, wow, this is the third noble truth. This is freedom from that dissatisfaction. I can actually come into a state of satisfaction. And so now we understand that when we can get out of that state of unsatisfactoriness or dissatisfaction into a state of satisfaction using this part of the path that we're talking about, we gain confidence in it. We know that, well, this is the right way to go. I can see it in action. That right sati and right effort brings on right attitude. And so we gain confidence in that path. And so we begin to get developing more and more skills at it. And so this is the basic practice where we get started. And if we continue this over and over again, it will begin to bring us to a state of satisfaction. And that satisfaction is actually based on success. For instance, if you got into a fight with someone and you lost and he won, he's probably going to have more satisfaction than you do. You want a do-over. You're not satisfied with losing. But if you can win, then that feeling of being a winner, feeling in charge of this, feeling like you can do it, now we have room for satisfaction. So success and satisfaction work together. And along with that comes the feeling of security. If I can do it, and I'm satisfied with what I've done. Now I can feel secure. I don't have to feel afraid. I don't need a do-over to feel good about myself. I've already done a good job in the first place. Okay, so this is part of the practice that we have, is to gain that self-confidence. Even if we're calling it self, it doesn't matter right now. What we're doing is we're coming out of the old habits and creating new ones and gaining confidence that we can do that, so that every time we can, going back to that analogy of the emperor of his own pile of dirt. Basically, there's only two positions, and that is either being buried under it, being a hindrance, or being on top of it. Most of the students get stuck on that intermediate place of trying to crawl out of it when there's nothing to crawl out of. You're already, once you recognize that you're under that pile of dirt, out you pop. That popping out, that's that, aha, I see you. And so part of that I see you is, throwing that stuff off. It's like, what the heck is this? Throw it out. Okay. And so now we're no longer in a state of being under our own pile of dirt. Now we're up on top of it. And this is all about to do with the attitude. So we see how right effort to wake up to the fact that we're under that pile of dirt, to take that deep breath and say, wait a minute, I'm not under that pile of dirt. That was an illusion that I had created, and my new illusion is I'm on top of it.
So are you blowing away the dirt?
Pardon?
Are you blowing away the dirt? No.
Well,
in a way,
let us recognize that it's actually not of much value. It's not. It's actually quite empty of value. Your past is dead, it's gone. But we cling to the past as if it had some value, for in fact it doesn't. Even for a carpenter, the fact that he has carpentered many, many chairs in the past has nothing to do with the carpenting he's doing on this chair right now. And if he relies upon the chairs he made last week, then he's going to screw this one up. So it all has to do with our past has got no value other than the skills that it helped us to develop. That's the value of the past, is that we come out of the past with new skills if we're practicing correctly. And so this pile of dirt that we're talking about, in the Pali word is lokatara. Lokatara. The word loka is like the English word location, and it means the world. In fact, in Thai language, Rap Lok means around the world.
Loka in Sinhalese is world.
It means world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in English, we get the word location and local and all of that kind of stuff. So this lokatara means to be above the world. What world? The world I created. The emperor of my own pile of dirt. This is basically what it means. And in the it's sometimes translated as transcendent, perhaps transcendental. But another word that's often used that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa liked was the word supramundane. It's above the mundane world. And so this is why we talk about it in the sense of the supramundane Dhamma. This is not the Dhamma for ordinary people. This is the Dhamma that is above the world of religion, the world of the purification of one's mind by this constant practice over and over and over again of mindfulness. Mindfulness giving rise to right effort giving rise to right attitude. And all of it is based upon right view. And so we practice that over and over again. And how we practice it is with anapanasati, with the breath and it was gladdening the mind and these other aspects. And so you can see how Anapanasati and the Four Noble Truths fit together completely like that. And that the deeper our practice goes, the more that fit seems so correct. It's like a kind of surprise. An example of that is at one time, the hump of South America was in the under part of the handle of Africa. And you can look on a map and you can say, those things must have fit together one time or another.
Yeah.
Okay, but now they've done enough research to say, wait a minute, the animals here and the animals there are very, very close together. How can that be if they're actually separated by an ocean? The answer is at one time they were not. They were stuck together like that. Okay, well, that's the way that we look at the Eightfold Noble Path and the practice of Anapanasati, is that it's just one practice. And that the Satipatthana is part of that. In fact, the Buddha says that we practice Anapanasati for the fulfillment of the Satipatthana. That's why the Anapanasati is arranged in those four tetrads of the body, the feeling, the mind, and the mind's objects. Those are the four foundations of mindfulness. But Anapanasati is designed around that, using the Eightfold Noble Path. So now things are beginning to fit together like this. And then we begin to see, okay, well, if I'm actually practicing the Eightfold Noble Path and I'm practicing the Satipatthana, we can begin to see how these things work together. So that an example of this is that in the Satipatthana Sutta, it says, well, what are the things to be mindful of, or what are we going to look at in the sense of the Dhammanupassana? And the first item on the list is the hindrances. We've got to see those hindrances. The second item on the list is the five aggregates. Well, the five aggregates are already associated with the Satipatthana. Then we begin to understand that, now the next item on the list is the actual Eightfold Noble Path and the Four Noble Truths. But in the Anapanasati Sutta, it says that we're practicing the Satipatthana for the fulfillment of the seven factors of enlightenment. And the beginning student will say, tilt, bonkers, this sutta does not fit that sutta. Something's adjourned here. Something's not fitting. Until we begin to understand that, wait a minute, no. The Sambhojana, or the seven factors of enlightenment, are fulfilled. And when they're fulfilled, they become unremitting, but it's the same path factors of the Eightfold Noble Path. And in fact, the Sambhojana starts out in the sense of it is unremitting mindfulness. Now, when we begin the path, our mindfulness is quite spotty. We're developing it. But once we get it practiced correctly, now it becomes unremitting. The next one then would be unremitting investigation. We keep looking and keep looking and keep investigating, and that's nothing but the right view, practiced over and over again. We keep inspecting, we keep looking. And then the third item, which is right effort, then becomes energy. It's unremitting energy. In other words, things kind of pop into place. Things happen because we've got the effort built up to where now it's easy. And then the next item on the list of the Sambhojana is actually seems out of place, and that's unremitting piti. Well, piti is the Pali word that has to do with the quality of success. And that success and satisfaction actually then is sukha. And so we have to practice this Eightfold Noble Path until it is really up to scratch. And the up to scratch quality is the word unremitting. It keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, so that it's going to be there when we need it most. And so this is the way then that the Satipatthana Sutta and the Anapanasati Sutta fit directly together with the Eightfold Noble Path. and it becomes just one teaching. And so next time when we talk, we'll begin to look at that second noble truth, the cause of suffering, because in fact the cause of the suffering is in fact these hindrances.
Okay.
And so as we begin to understand the second noble truth and how it works together, we begin to get the attitude of, wait a minute, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I want to be in a state of joy and pleasure instead, because now I understand it's my choice. That Bhikkhu Buddhadasa talks about it in the sense of karma, kind of in the old traditional way, that everyone is subject to their karma. Everyone is subject to all of their past actions, and another way of talking about that is that that's the sankhara. That's the built-up junk that we have. But Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is talking about it in this way. You can either follow your karma, or you can make a choice to not follow that karma. That you can become free from it. You are not bound to continue to repeat the old bad samsara over and over again. That you can make a choice to come out of it. In that regard, the teaching of the Buddha, not magic.
Okay.
It's not a magical thing. It's actually, you can make the choice to come out of your old karma. And that choice that you're making then is actually the choice of feeling like a winner, feeling on top of your game, feeling like you can do this. And the only way that we can develop those kind of feelings is through consistent, correct practice that keeps giving us good results over and over again until we gain that confidence that this is the path. This is the right way to do it. And that's where we come to that third doubt. That third doubt is this the right way to do it or not? And the answer is yes. So now I can say I'm free from that first doubt because I know that it's up to me to fix this. I'm free from the second doubt because I know I can do it. And I'm also free from the third doubt because now I know I've got the right tools to do the job. And so this is what is meant then by the eradication of that third fetter of doubt, is because we have knowledge and vision of what is and what is not the path. That's a very important phrase. Memorize that. Knowledge and vision of what is and is not the path. Because we've been practicing as if what was not the path was the path. And that's why we're not getting any progress, is because we confuse what is the path and what is not the path. But now that we know for sure, beyond a shadow of doubt, what is the path and what is not the path, we no longer go to the area of not the path anymore, and we stay on the path. Because we know that if we get off the path, that there's going to be stumbling and falling and whatnot like that. I think about it in the sense of the Eightfold Noble Path is not a journey or a destination, it's merely being on the path. And that the alternate is being in the ditch. And most people spend their lives in the ditch rather than getting up on the path. And we don't even care where the path goes so long as we're not in the ditch anymore. Now we can boogie on down the path. And so when we think of it like that, that basically these hindrances is the ditch that's on both sides of the path. And all we do is get off the path, which means we forget our sati. We're not taking right effort or something in that regard. And so we wind up back in hindrances again, which are the ditch. And so when we come to understand what is the ditch, we can avoid it more and more. So we can stay on the road. And the road itself is delightful. And so we take great delight in this, in the path of the Buddha. It's actually quite a delightful way of living. But the first knowledge that we have to come to is the knowledge. And this is the first knowledge, is no matter how obstructed the mind gets with hindrance, I can clean it out and come back to this present moment. That's your first step out of the world. That's the first step the knowledge that I can clean out the mind and come back to this present moment is a supermundane point. It's supermundane. It's not part of the world. It is noble. It's a factor of the path, and it's not held by ordinary people. Ordinary people are victims. Ordinary people still have doubts about whose job it is. They have doubts about can they do the job. But we're coming to the point here of that we have knowledge and vision of what is the path. And so we have that confidence built up. That the Pali word is shraddha. You probably heard that word before. And it means not faith. It normally is translated as faith. Christian influence, you know.
Okay.
But shraddha is not faith. Shraddha is confidence based upon repeated success.
Okay.
And what was success? Sati, waking up. Wakey, wakey. Look at what you're doing. Over and over and over again, coming out of the bad feelings, coming out of the junk thoughts, into being happy in this present moment.
Okay.
So do you have any questions about this?
Other than putting it into practice,
yes, that's exactly what it is. My job is to cheerlead you, to be your cheerleader, to get you to practice.
Mm.
The practice is not necessarily sitting on a cushion in a meditation hall, because you can't carry that meditation hall around with you when the cops stop you.
Mm.
You got to be able to handle your life out there, not just on the cushion. So that means that we need to practice at any time of the day, to remember to take a deep breath, to remember to stop doing what we're doing and do something beautiful instead. Aha, I see you, Myra.
When you're taking this deep breath, is it like in the Goenka style Anapana where it's they focus on the nose, or do you focus on the diaphragm to make sure you're getting
Or the whole body?
Or the whole body? How is there, or is there no focus?
I would say that the whole body is the answer, but not all at the same time. Because you're not ready to do it all at the same time.
Right. Okay.
That's a skill to be developed.
Okay.
Now, in the Goenka retreat, they do it in a systematic way, starting at the top of the head and moving down to the feet. That has a value to it, but also you can do it the more natural way of just being aware of the breathing. Keep watching, keep noticing.
Just notice, you can notice your breath going, it doesn't go in one go, does it? It's gradual. And it goes out again gradually. So if you, that's probably a place to.
Okay, well, we can think of it in the sense that a deep breath is going to fill the belly with the diaphragm. It's going to open the chest, and it's even going to raise the shoulders a bit. But that's a full breath, not 100%, because no matter, even with a really deep breath like that, you can still take in a little more air, and we're not trying to top it off. We're just trying to get it up, get it full, and then breathe it out. And this will actually slow things down, because most people are breathing faster because they're not breathing fully. And so this slows down the breathing so that we can get it more energized. This will actually, if you're doing it properly over time, it will begin to give you a tingling feeling, a vibrantly alive feeling. Okay? This is to be investigated also. To allow yourself to feel really, really good with the breathing. Yeah, open it up.
I mean, when you do that, your panting one, it's just like
everything. You can feel it.
It's not just it's vibrations everywhere. So it's but again, with the breathing, is it nasally or just
the mouth or the nose,
or whatever's comfortable in terms of when you're practicing?
It depends upon the condition of the sinuses. But let's look at it from this perspective, that the job of the nose is to filter and warm the air as it's coming in. And if we breathe in with the mouth, it will give us a dry mouth.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, but breathing out, we want to kind of let it all out, and any hole we've got will do.
oh, really? Okay.
Okay.
That's
So
interesting, because
breathing in through the nose and then breathing out in any old way possible, including nose and mouth, and go like that, and just let it come out. But when we breathe in again, it's better to breathe in through the nose if we can. And it's also good for us if we can't breathe through the nose, then we should know that rather than ignoring it. We should do something to open the passage so that we can breathe.
Okay.
Okay. And there's many ways to do that. Here in Thailand, they have a kind of a eucalyptus stick that's possible. So this is one thing. But in ancient India, they had another technique. And that was that you hold water in the palm of your hand and then close one nostril and breathe in, and then close the other nostril with the other side of the hand for breathing in, so that we can get this mixture in for drainage. Now, the mixture that I'm talking about it can actually be nothing but cold water. That works. Better still is salty water. This is one of the reasons why it's good to go to the beach, is because it really drains out the sinuses. Okay. But an even more effective one is to use warm salt water.
Okay.
Because the warm salt water will help break up the mucus so that you can actually start to breathe easier. And another one that helps quite a lot is having the Corona-19 virus shut all of the planes down and the cars stop so that we can get some good air to breathe.
We noticed, it's been brilliant in that respect. There's a lot of wild animals coming into the garden, and the nature. We had a fox in the garden yesterday, which is they only come out at night. This is in the daytime. Birds, loads of birds, out. So
I hadn't thought about that, because we live in nature all the time here. I've got birds everywhere.
Okay.
But that's interesting that even in south of London, that the animal life, because the people are not around, they're sitting in the house.
Right. They're taking over.
Just like Chernobyl. There's actually an area in South Carolina that most people don't know about. It's down at it's on the Savannah River, and it has an area on both sides of the river. But this is actually a part of the river that's a delta, and there's almost no roads going in there. This is what's called the Savannah River Project, and this is the dumping ground for nuclear waste. It's a big dumping ground for nuclear waste. And so they very much limit the traffic on this river. And there's hardly any roads into this area. And guess what about the wildlife? This is a natural wildlife sanctuary. Everything is out there because the humans are not allowed into that area. And it's vast. It's a huge area of South Carolina. Hundreds of square miles.
Okay.
And so humans off the planet, or at least off the streets. So we can think of it in that way. Also, people talk about it in the sense of being isolated. Well, isolated has the word ice in it, so we're already going in that kind of direction. A much better word to use would be solitude, because solitude has a delicious quality. And so what we're seeking is solitude, but basically we seek first solitude from the world. That's why we sit in the meditation hall, is to get away from the world so that we can have one kind of solitude will help us get the other kind of solitude, which means being free from that world mentally. Once we get free from it physically, we can be free from it mentally.
Daddy.
I
go to beach.
Okay, you're going to go to the beach, huh? Are you going to wear a face mask? Okay.
I mean, we've been telling each other it is what's happening to humanity. You're all going on retreat. the
If we could
isolation.
all, if they would realize that, if they could recognize that this is a marvelous time for the whole country to go on retreat.
Also, a lot of the vices like gambling, prostitution,
Drinking.
It's all gone.
There's no sport.
There's no sport. There's no sports betting. You know.
And also, people for food. You're not buying luxuries anymore. You're buying the essentials.
The essentials.
What you need.
Which means that nobody can follow their vices. Nobody can do all the things that they want to do, and they're miserable.
Exactly.
Rather than understanding that they're actually free from that stuff, that's actually hindrances to being happy.
Yeah. But that realization will probably put them onto the path.
Maybe. I'll let that to the end.
Actually, then what we're saying is perhaps it would be good for the world's economy and the people if the what do they call it? The quarantine or the stay-at-home rules lasted not just 1 month, but 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. People get used to it. Then 6 months, they begin to like it. And so when the economy,
I don't know about that.
So when the economy starts back up, nobody wants to go back to work. Hey, I've been enjoying myself at home.
And again, with the economy, you're finding that eventually some countries are already doing this. They're funding their people. You know, you don't have to have a job anymore to.
That's what's going to happen. Probably will happen.
Which is again a monk's life.
Well, the people of the world to make enough money to support the people of the world, and yet that doesn't happen. The wealthy keep all the money, and the poor people go hungry. And so we're planet Earth is actually rearranging something, and you could say it like this, and I'll have to introduce it in the sense that if we're going to use magic, we have to know when we're using it. Okay, so in that regard, here's a piece of magic for you. All right, the poetic justice department of the giant karma machine in the sky is colluding with Mother Nature, Mother Earth, for her to take a breather by taking the breath away from the humans.
Yes. But
is that poetic justice or what?
And deserved.
And so now you know that this is poetic justice. This is the big karma machine doing something nice for humanity. We can say, thank you, Mother. Thank you. Thank you. And so we can all take a breather, to all take a rest. You probably have noticed, if you're that close to London, that the air is cleaner. Who lives in London?
60 miles from London.
I mean, our air is much cleaner than London, but even now we can notice a difference before and after. So it's just
the sky is so blue.
The sun shines much brighter.
Isn't that a surprise? The sky is blue. Really?
No, not where we live. Normally it's like grey and overcast, but some of the days it's like crystal clear. It's so nice. You know, it's just
If people had good air like that to breathe, they would really like Anapanasati instead of breathing the crap that we've gotten used to breathing. And so that's the poetic justice part of it, is that that Mother Earth and the coronavirus is giving Mother Earth a breather by for humans, they're taking your breath away. Actually, Matt and I have just talked. We'll probably put his video on, but his father was in the hospital with the coronavirus.
Oh, really?
All the machines and everything.
Is he from UK, US?
Sorry?
Where's he from?
London.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, really?
And so his father was in the hospital on the ventilators and whatnot, and Matt kept calling him on the phone, telling him to breathe. Keep breathing. keep breathing. And now he's been discharged from the hospital.
Okay, good.
And that one of the things that they were talking about was that the physiotherapists that are in the London hospitals are doing exactly what I'm telling them to do, to go to the coronavirus patients and tell them to consciously breathe, intentionally breathe, get as much oxygen into you can.
Deep breathing, isn't it?
Pardon?
Deep breathing.
Yes.
Okay.
Keeping people alive.
Mm-hmm.
If we could teach people that, there would probably be much lower incidence of death. That people literally stop breathing because it's too much work to breathe.
It is, yeah.
But if you think about it in another direction, that's exactly how almost everybody dies, no matter what virus they've got. Is that when breathing becomes too much work, is when we die. The first thing that happens is we stop breathing, and then we die. So keep breathing. As long as you're breathing, you're alive. Especially if you're doing it intentionally, you're really alive. And that's a major aspect of the teaching of the Buddha, is being alive and knowing that you're alive and knowing that you can do this. And taking that confidence. And that's just one of the reasons why the Buddha was known as a lion. And the whole idea of the lion's roar. The lion is the can-do attitude. We can do this. So I ask you before we hang up on each other, can you do this?
Yes, yes, definitely.
You can, huh? Okay, that's the right attitude. You can do this.
It's interesting though, because sometimes, I mean, because most of the ones we've been talking, I'd say it's natural, but it's the shallow breathing is what we've been
used to.
That's the normal breathing.
Yeah, that's what you call normal. But it's interesting because sometimes in your meditation, you just go deep breaths, and but because you're not controlling it, you just let it go anyway. But it's your body's trying to do that anyway sometimes. So yeah, and thing is, sometimes my attention goes down to that as well. So, but again, with the TWIM, you'll tend to focus on your mind. Because initially it's on the heart, and then it'll drift up. Your attention drifts up to your mind, and then you radiate your metta from there. But so you don't try to go back down again to your body or anything like that.
Well, in that regard, this is what we're doing with the development of metta. The first development of the metta would be, aha, I see you, Mara. That's actually the start of metta, and it also has to do with becoming friends with your whole, in everything in your life, including starting with your body, your feelings, your mind. Become friendly with it. That's in fact what the word metta means, is kindness or friendliness. Kalya metta is the spiritual friend. And so we are our own first spiritual friend. That we stop being hard on ourselves, because that's just making ourselves unhappy. But people are hard on themselves because somebody else was hard on them when they were children, and so they're just keeping it up. That's our karma. But we have a choice. Are we going to follow the karma, or are we going to feel the way we want to feel?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So we'll finish now, and we'll see you guys within a week or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Take care.
Okay. All righty.
Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.